It's been a long day. Hello my little pickles and welcome to this bonus episode of the Knitting Pickle. My name is Laura and usually you would find me hosting the Knitting Pickle podcast where I talk about all my knitting projects. However, today is a little bit different, so if you haven't seen any of my previous episodes, go and give one or two a watch because this might be a bit out of context. And for those of you who are my loyal subscribers, this one is just for you. I realised earlier on today that I'm not going to get the chance to film a podcast for the next few weeks because it's my brother-in-law's wedding, and either before or after that we're going to be going down to Devon for a week to have a little break. That's where my in-laws live. So I thought, what can I do? Because I am well overdue giving you guys a giveaway and I've been promising it for weeks and weeks and weeks. And today I hit 4,000 subscribers on YouTube and 2,000 followers on Instagram. So I thought, let's just do it. Let's film a video, get the giveaway going so that by the time my sock pattern is ready to be released and the next podcast, I can give you guys a winner. So before we continue, if you can hear a child crying in the background, that is my daughter. She's struggling to go to sleep at the moment because it's been really, really hot, but my husband is with her, so don't worry too much. I'm also filming outside for once because obviously the weather's been so lovely and, well, it's about to turn actually. It's starting to get a little bit windy. And you may be able to hear some neighbours. I think they've got some friends around in the garden. So hopefully the sound is all right for you. Oh, and one more thing. We live in a village in the countryside, and at this time of night, because it's about 8 o'clock in the evening, we have a lot of tractors going past. So I'll try and pause if the background noise gets loud so I can cut it out. But if not, I'm sorry, bear with me. But it's just far too hot to film in the house at the moment. Though clearly not hot enough outside for knitwear. This is my Felix sweater and it's one of my most recently finished whips. I won't go into whips. Tractor. This is my Felix and it's one of my most recently finished projects. I won't go into it much right now because it's all in previous podcasts, and I'll probably wear this at the next available opportunity and talk about it a little bit more. But that's what I'm wearing. So let's get on to the giveaway information because that's probably what most of you are here for. If you've been following me for a little while, you will have seen I've been developing my first ever knitting pattern. It's a pair of socks and they're called the CornicetteSock, and it's in its final stages now of kind of final tweaking. My sister is a graphic designer and she's casting her professional eye over it one more time just to make sure there's no typos, that it reads nicely and that it looks like a proper professional pattern. So the first prize for the giveaway is going to be in honour of the CornicetteSock pattern release, and you will receive, so one winner will receive a copy of the CornicetteSock pattern and everything you need to make those socks, and I mean everything. In case you haven't seen them yet, I've got 3 pairs of Cornicettes now. This is the original pair. They're a little bit different to the final pattern, just the distribution of the colour work, but you can kind of get the idea here. And there is a shorty version. My second pair is the regular length version, and there is also a longer leg version, and the longer leg is kind of intended more for the larger sizes because I think this is quite a unisex sock pattern, and for like a larger men's foot size potentially you might want a bit of a longer leg, so that's for you in the pattern as well. And then there's another pair of shorties that I made just to triple check the pattern. Honestly, if I release this pattern and there's a mistake in it, I'm literally gonna cry. So these are the CornicetteSock, so you can win the pattern and everything you need to make them. You don't need to use the things that you win, or the yarn and things that you win to make these socks if you don't want to. It's completely up to you, but if you did want to, that's everything you'll need. And then there's going to be a second winner for the giveaway to celebrate my subscribers and my following, and to say thank you to everybody who has subscribed and put their faith in me. And that's also a 2-part prize. You will receive a pattern of your choice from the wonderful Hanna from Herbgarden Knitwear. I've knit one of her, well, I test knit her most recent pattern that isn't quite released yet but will be soon, and that's the Seaborn Tee. It's a gorgeous pattern. Obviously I highly recommend that one, but there's quite a few other patterns of hers that I've got my eye on anyway, so you will win one of her patterns. And then to put your project in, you will receive this gorgeous project bag that has been handmade by my mum. She's not yet opened an Etsy shop, but she does have plans to, so if you don't win it, you may well be able to buy some in the future. And it also comes with a gorgeous little notions pouch as well to keep all your bits and bobs in. So those are the prizes. if you are an independent business, if you're a yarn dyer or anything like that, or you want to donate a pattern or something to the giveaway, then please do get in touch, because I want to give away as much as possible. And finally, just so that I can reward everyone who's been subscribed to me, because obviously with a giveaway you only get 1 or 2 winners, but I want to thank all of you for supporting me so far. I will be including a discount code for the CornicetteSock pattern in the next podcast when the pattern has been released and when I've drawn a winner. So to enter the giveaway, you need to be subscribed to my channel, you need to like this video, and you need to leave a comment in the comment box below. Usually I love replying to comments and I love chatting to you all, but for the sake of this giveaway I'm not going to be replying to comments in this feed, so that I don't then draw myself as a winner, because that wouldn't really work, would it? So that's the giveaway instructions. I'd love it if you entered, and let's move on to the cheeky Q&A. It's Friday night, so I am on the wine tonight, and it's all right. But when you're a mum of 2 toddlers, honestly, any wine will do. Also, we have no wine glasses because they've all been broken, and we've been in a house renovation for 6 months, so it hasn't really seemed worth it to buy wine glasses. So, as I mentioned, I asked over, or maybe did I mention? Might not have done. I asked over on my Instagram in my stories this morning if any of you had any burning questions for me, any knitting questions, any nosy life questions, or if you had anyone that you could recommend to me. And I also realised when I asked that question that I had forgotten to do my podcast shout outs. In my last episode I did some small designer shout outs, but I'm also going to recommend some podcasts for you at the end of this video, like I normally would in a podcast, and I'm going to answer some of the questions that I've been asked. I don't think I'll have time to answer all of them, otherwise we'd probably be here for quite a long time, but I'm going to choose the ones that I want to answer. I'm not going to say the names of the people who asked the questions because I don't know if they want me to or not, and to go through and ask everyone and wait for their replies would mean this video would be massively delayed. So I'm just going to read the questions and answer them for you. So first up, I've got 2 questions from one person, but they're kind of similar. So the first is, what's your favourite technique? And the second is, what technique do you want to learn / improve on? Now, I think currently my favourite technique is colour work. I've basically spent the last year learning how to do stranded colour work just by doing it, really, obviously watching a lot of videos, but mainly just through trial and error recently. And I think at the end of the year I'm going to do a video about my first year of colour work, because I've got enough projects where you can really see the progression. But if you'd watched my latest episode, I finished my Maya cardigan, which is pretty much a full colour work cardigan apart from one panel in the middle, but it's the most intensive colour work project I've ever done, and I love it so much. If it wasn't still about 20 degrees I'd be wearing it right now, but it's made of Leubben, so probably not the best idea. And that is also the technique that I want to improve on. I'd say I'm proficient now in 2-strand colour work, but I would really like to learn 3-strand colour work. I'm not quite sure how I want to do that yet, because there are a lot of different ways to hold your yarns, and that's probably the thing I struggle with the most. It's my daughter banging in her cot. I'm an English style knitter, but I do knit continental / Norwegian when I'm doing colour work, so I've got a strand in each hand. But my left hand isn't really strong enough yet to hold 2 colours at once, so we'll see. That's what I think I want to improve on the most. The next one is, what did you use to teach yourself to knit? You seem really skilled after only a couple of years. I'm completely self-taught. My grandma tried to teach me when I was younger, but I just wasn't that interested. I wish I'd listened to her more. But since I started knitting, it's all been YouTube. That's just the wonder of YouTube. It's free, it's accessible, and it's just brilliant. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I want to go into making tutorials and other kind of knitting videos other than podcasts, because I kind of want to give back the resources that I used so much to learn how to knit. And also just practice. That's the main thing. If something doesn't work out for you, just put it on rest for a little while. You leave some time for your mind to think about it and come back to it, because you'll probably you'll definitely find you're much better second time round because you've already learnt from your mistakes. So the best way for learning how to knit, if you don't have someone in your life that can actually teach you in person, is YouTube and practice. The next question is, will you have a designated wool knitting space once your renovations are complete? I bloody hope so, is all I'm going to say. As I mentioned before, we've been renovating for the past 6 months, and currently all my knitting supplies are in about 1 million different bags and baskets and boxes all over the house, and I cannot ever find what I need, and I'm just desperate to get it all unpacked and sorted. My husband has an office because he works from home. Well, obviously most people work from home at the moment, but even as things are lifted, he will continue to be working home at least 2 days of the week. So we've allocated one of our bedrooms to be his office, and within that office we've got 2 quite big bookcases that used to be in our old living room but now don't really work in our new living room. One of them is for all of his stuff and the other is for all of my knitting stuff. I just haven't got round to kind of putting it all up on the shelves. I've got a lot to sort through. I haven't got a huge stash, but the majority of yarn I own is not yarn I want to knit with anymore, so I need to go through all that. There's a lady in my village that does charity knitting, so all that yarn will go to her, it won't be wasted. So I just need to get around to doing it really. So yes, I will have a space purely dedicated to my craft and for knitting and storing all my stuff, and I would also hope that I'll be able to podcast from that space as well, so I can have like all my knitting stuff in the background and everything to hand and that kind of thing. So hopefully that will come into fruition soon. The next question is, how long do you usually knit a day? And when I saw this question I thought, oh god, I'm gonna have to admit just how much I knit most days. Now this isn't every day. I'm a full-time mum of 2 toddlers, so that takes up the majority of my time. My son is in nursery twice a week, but my daughter hasn't started nursery yet, so she's with me all the time. So it completely depends on what we're doing that day. Some days we're out all day doing stuff, some days we're at home. So I'll probably talk about the days that I spend at home, which is probably at least 50% of our time. So my daughter will usually wake me up around 6 o'clock in the morning, and then I'll probably knit for an hour, then I'll have breakfast, and then I'll get everyone ready for the day, kind of put the washing away, do any kind of like little life jobs, and then we will settle down for the day. My kids will play, and I'll probably knit for a few hours, and then it's lunchtime, so I'll make lunch, and then we'll do a little toy tidy up, and then we'll eat lunch, and then the kids will settle down again to play. I'll probably knit for a few hours and then it's tea time, so I'll make the tea and we'll do the tidy up and we'll put the kids to bed, and then I'll eat my tea with my husband, and then we'll settle down to watch the telly and I'll knit for a few hours. So it's probably at least 4 hours a day on a kind of normal day. Some days it's more. At the weekend it can be more because my husband's around, so he'll do the kids' tea, or he'll take the kids out for a little while so I can have a little break and do more knitting because I don't get enough knitting time as it is. Some days I don't knit at all. Today I haven't knit at all because it's been go, go, go from the moment we woke up. So yeah, it changes a lot, but I am very aware that I knit a lot more than the average person just because I have those hours available to me. I know that won't always be the case, but we'll see where life takes me. The next question is, did you know that Amber from A Lovely Yarn podcast mentioned you in her latest podcast? And no, at the time I didn't know. I'm actually subscribed to Amber and I've watched most of her episodes, and I had watched her latest episode, but it's quite a long one and I hadn't quite finished it. I think life had got in the way and I'd stopped watching it just as she'd gone on to her podcast mentions, and one of them was me. So I would like to take this opportunity to say thank you, Amber, for mentioning me. I have looked back at my stats and I had a little subscriber flurry at that point, so I will put that down to you. So thank you very much, Amber. If you haven't seen the A Lovely Yarn knitting podcast yet, I highly recommend it. She's got that kind of chill, relaxed, soothing kind of element to her podcast, which I really, really like. So next question, favourite thing to knit? I'd say I go through phases where I prefer different. Get back into bed, young man. Dad's having a right job of it tonight. So where were we? Favourite things to knit. I definitely go through phases, but I'd say my overall favourite thing is sweaters. and garments, so cardigans, pullovers, vests, that kind of thing, something I can wear on my whole body. I've always been interested in clothing, and in my 20s I had a little dabble at being a seamstress, but I never learned to follow a pattern. I kind of made it up as I went along. I was really impatient, as most 20-year-olds are in their life, but I definitely like to revisit that. But I think that part of me is why I really enjoy knitting garments. I really like socks too, and obviously I've made my own sock pattern, and I find socks are a really nice kind of, what's it called, a palette cleanser, I've heard it called, kind of between big garments. It's like quick, it's like instant satisfaction, it's relaxing. It can be complicated if you want to, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. So I definitely say sweaters, followed by socks. I'm not really an accessory knitter. I don't really knit hats. I've knit a few pairs of mittens. I've never done a cowl. I've done 2 shawls, but they weren't for me, they were gifted. So I'm definitely all about the garments. So the next one isn't a question, it's just 2 words, and it says tattoo tour. Now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 tattoos, so I'm not going to show you them all because we'd be here like for ages, and quite a few of them were when I was a bit younger and I didn't really do my research or anything like that. Not that I'd get any of them removed or anything, but they could be better quality. But I will show you the ones I've had most recently. So excuse me whilst I derobe. So my most recent tattoo is this triangle on my arm. You might recognise this shape. It's a very specific type of triangle, and it's called a Penrose triangle. The Penrose triangle was created by a mathematician like ages ago, and it's basically a shape that you can draw on paper, but you can't create it in real life. It's like an impossible triangle. If you think of the painting by Escher, the stairs that look like they connect but they don't, that kind of thing. It's an impossible shape. And when I got married to my husband and took on his name, shortly after we got married, I got this tattoo without telling him. So it's kind of like, it commemorates that part of my life, and that's what all my tattoos are for, really. They commemorate moments in my life, apart from my shoulders, and they commemorate people rather than moments. These are probably my favourite tattoos. I did a lot of research. I had them designed specifically by me, by a tattoo artist whose work I'd seen a lot of and trusted. It was a long process. I had it done in a couple of sessions. But this one on my shoulder here is a poppy, and my grandma on my mum's side called me Poppy when I was little. Basically, it took my parents ages to decide on my name, and Poppy was in the running for a while, and that's what she thought I should have been called. And I agree, I'd much prefer to be called Poppy than Laura. But this is to commemorate my grandma Jean on my mum's side, and this one is an iris, and this is to commemorate my other grandma on my dad's side, who's no longer with us, and she was called Iris. So when I had the idea, I thought, what a nice way to kind of commemorate 2 really important women in my life. They're on my shoulders. That was just a kind of thinking behind it, and I really love them. They're covered most of the time, and you wouldn't think that of a shoulder tattoo, but obviously in the summer they're seen more. And I also think, like, I quite like how, you know, up until recently they've not really been seen, and then I rock up on the nursery drop off and I've got these 2 tattoos on my shoulder, and it's like, oh, people are usually quite surprised by them, and I like that. I like to surprise people. Anyway, next up, I had a relative flurry of questions from Sue, Crafty Knitter 7 on Instagram, and she is one of the hosts of the Distant Stitches podcast, so have a little look at that podcast if you haven't seen that yet. She asked me 5 questions, so I'm going to do like a quick fire thing. So, your fave go-to cold drink, iced coffee or Diet Coke? How old are your kids? 2 and nearly 4. What's your favourite colour? Green. What would you knit if you could only choose one project for a month? A really intricate cabled sweater. And then, what does your partner do for a living? My husband works in the video game industry. He's actually an artist, and he's an art director for a company. He used to work for Playground Games. If you know anything about games, you might have heard of the Forza Horizon series. That's what he used to make, and he's now starting a new studio with some friends. So that's super exciting, super cool. I hope my son and daughter appreciate it when they're older. I asked my son the other day, what does Daddy do? Oh, he makes video games. And out of curiosity I said, what does Mummy do? And he went, knitting. So I think that says a lot. Hopefully one day I will be able to say, yes, I knit for a living. That would be amazing. And then I think I've got two more that I'm going to question. I've got two more questions that I'm going to answer, and one is some advice, and it says, are you supposed to rewind the drops mohair before knitting with it into a centre pull ball? Interesting question. I've never thought about it. I'm currently knitting with drops mohair, and I'm pulling from the centre, and I've not wound it. I know that sometimes pulling from the centre with mohair you can just end up getting in a bit of a mess and pulling a big clump out, but I'd never thought to just wind it into a centre pull ball before you even got started. So in answer to that question, I don't think you're supposed to, but I think it's a really good idea, and that's probably what I'm going to do from now on. So thank you for that question. And then next up we have, what has surprised you most or has been an unexpected joy of the podcast? Now, this is a really brilliant question because it's super relevant to something else I did today. This afternoon I filmed my contribution to the Knit Slips Crafting and Mental Health series. And in that episode I talk about how podcasting has had a really positive effect on my mental health. So I'm not going to go into too many details about it now because it's all in that video, and I'd much rather you go and watch that video to find out a little bit more about me and my mental health journey and how knitting and crafting has helped me through some of my struggles. But quickly, in a nutshell, I've always struggled with body image and how I see myself, and a year ago I would not have been able to have sat in front of a camera and talked for an hour, let alone edit that video. But thanks to the wonderful podcasting community and how lovely everyone is in the comments and how encouraging they are, I have found something that brings me so much joy, and it is one of those things that just reminds me that how I look and all that kind of rubbish doesn't matter at all, and the important thing is what I can give to the world, my passions, my skills. That is what is interesting about me, not the way I look. So that was definitely a wonderful benefit of podcasting, and I'd also want to say a little thank you for everyone's support, because it means a lot to me, and I'm gonna finish that there because I'm gonna cry. When I asked on my Instagram to ask me any questions or to leave me any suggestions, I was recommended an Instagram account called Mezzo Makes, and that's MEZZO.makes, and it says she has some gorgeous patterns out now and coming out soon. So I had a little look at that Instagram account, and OMG, beautiful patterns. There are only 4 patterns so far, but they look really lovely. You've got some really lovely summer crops. They look really size inclusive, which is something that I feel is really important at the moment. And yeah, something that I hadn't ever seen before. And in my most recent podcast, we've been talking about promoting smaller designers. And obviously, if you are on Instagram and even on Ravelry, I swear, every time I search something, no matter what I search, the Tin Can Knit Super Simple Mittens is always the first on the list, even if I've not searched mittens. So I find it quite difficult to find smaller designers, and it's not a bad thing that you see all the big designers, because as Lizzie from Hive Knits mentioned in her most recent podcast, it can be really helpful to see everybody else's projects, what yarns they've used. So that's a really good thing about all the big patterns that you see everywhere, but it does mean it can be harder to find more obscure things that you might not have seen before. So thank you for that suggestion. That's a new designer to me. And if you're struggling to know what to comment below for the giveaway, let me know a designer that you love that you think I might not have heard of before. And then I think one more question. What is your favourite method for blocking? Now, for me, as far as I'm aware, there's only one that's worth it. I've never really done like spraying or steaming. That just seems like too much of a faff, can't really be bothered. I just soak my finished garment in kind of just warm, mainly cold, but a little bit warm water with some more wash. I let it soak for 5-10 minutes so that all the water really penetrates all the fibres. then I let the water drain out. I usually do it in my bath. Let the water drain out. I kind of press it gently just to get any major excess water out, wrap it in a towel, and then I put it on a spin cycle in my washing machine. My washing machine has different like strengths of spin that you can do, so I put it on the lowest setting and it spins it for 10 minutes max, and when it comes out it's like almost dry, which is awesome. And then I just lay it flat and I will pin it if it needs to, or I will just lay it flat and leave it to dry. On a sunny day I'll put it out in the sun. In the winter I will kind of put it near a radiator if I can. But that's how I block my knitwear, and I find it really, really simple. It's essential in my view. Obviously as a new knitter I didn't really block very much. It felt really strange to kind of then soak my garment that I'd spent so long doing in water. It felt like I was going to ruin it. But it makes such a massive difference. It evens out all your stitches, it opens up your lace work, and it does change your garment. I think that's another reason why I used to resist blocking, because I knew my garment would change, and if it kind of fit me perfectly at that point, I didn't want it to grow or anything like that. But I didn't know about gauge swatching at that point, and the way to avoid your garment growing too much when you wash it is to make sure you've got the right gauge. But we'll go on to the whole do you gauge swatch, do you not conversation another time. Oh, need some wine. Apologies if the framing or the lighting has changed. I just realised that I'd forgotten again to do my podcast mentions. So, as I mentioned earlier on in this podcast, Lizzie from Hive Knits is a brand new podcaster. She has 3 episodes out, I believe. The first one is all about what she's currently working on, and episode 2 and 3 are all about her past knits. They are fantastic episodes because they are long, and I love a long podcast. I can sit down with my cup of tea and my knitting and just really get stuck in. And she also gives loads of information about loads of different projects, that from bean bags to jumpers to anything you can imagine. Lizzie's also done quite a lot of chunky knits, which is not something that I do that often, but I'm always really interested to see. And she did a pattern by, I can't remember the name of the pattern, but in the podcast it's like blue on the top and it's like peach on the bottom, and it's a garter stitch, either chunky or super chunky, and I really like it, and I think I'm going to put it on my list. So if you haven't watched Lizzie yet, go and check her out. Also, she's a doctor who's worked through a pandemic, so you have to, whether you want to or not, you have to go and support her channel, because, you know, come on. So the next podcast I would like to mention is Ruth Loves to Knit. Ruth is one of the nicest human beings that I've ever encountered. I was chatting to her on Instagram for ages before I even realised she had a podcast. She lives in Devon, and the last time in Devon she was like, "Where are you? We could meet up and have a little knit day." But it turned out we were a little bit too far apart. And she has some wonderful projects. She is really brave with her colour choices. She uses a lot of hand-dyed and variegated yarns, which is something I still struggle with. I struggle to commit, and I don't really know how it's going to turn out. So it's really great to see what she does with all these different yarns. It's so inspiring, and she knits loads of different things. And also at the moment, well, she has recently been monetized, and she is using any earnings she gets from her YouTube monetization to donate money for the hospital that she used to work for as a midwife in Bangladesh. And I mean, come on, how wonderful is that? So please go and check out Ruth's podcast. Don't skip that advert, watch it so that she can get money to send to the hospital in Bangladesh. If you've been watching the news at all, you know that India is really struggling at the moment with COVID. And for a mother who owes so much to a number of midwives, it's something that is really special to me. So I really encourage you to go and support Ruth. It's really not my day. My phone just cut out. So I was saying, please go and support Ruth. Not only does she have a wonderful podcast, but she's clearly a wonderful human being. And being a mother who has been through 2 labours and who owes a lot to a number of midwives, it's something that's really special to my heart. She's also given me a link where you can go and directly support the cause if you want to, and I encourage you to do that. I have, and I would be really happy if you did too. So the next person the final person I'm going to mention is Cyan from Cyan. I've had too much wine. Is Cyan from the Obsessive Maker podcast. She is based in Australia, and at the moment in Australia it is winter. I'm not a summer person, hate summer. I'm like, can we just get it over with? So I can go to her to get my jumper lovely fix, jumper wintry warmth fix. She has just finished her Magnolia Bloom and was one of the reasons I was spurred on to cast on my Magnolia Bloom, which I'm currently working on. And she's also a sewer, and as I mentioned before, that's something I'm really interested in. So if you want something slightly different, if you're interested in sewing as well as knitting, then I highly recommend Sian for you. I came across her via the Caroline's Knits podcast, who I've mentioned before, but I'll mention one more time because Caroline's my girl, and I think that is it. So thank you for watching this cheeky little bonus episode. Make sure you enter the giveaway. Just to remind you, you need to be subscribed, you need to like this video, and you need to leave a comment below so I can draw you from that. I can draw the winner from the comments. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Let me know if you'd like to see any more like this. Maybe I could do a call for questions on YouTube rather than on Instagram, because I know not everybody's on Instagram. So yeah, enjoy your weekend, guys, or your week, or whatever is happening for you in the next few days, and I will see you next time. Bye.